From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday called on the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN leaders to accelerate the adoption of a legally binding Code of Conduct or COC in the South China Sea as tensions continue to rise in the region. Speaking during the 46th ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, the President said the COC is essential to safeguard maritime rights, promote stability, and prevent miscalculations at sea. The long-delayed Code of Conduct, intended to establish rules and prevent conflict in the contested waters, has been under negotiation for over 2 decades between ASEAN and China. President Marcos emphasized that ensuring regional peace, security, and stability must remain central to ASEAN's vision moving forward. The Philippine President also addressed the broader challenges facing the region, such as climate change, economic volatility, and transnational crimes, while stressing the need for stronger cooperation and institutional resilience. The President urged ASEAN partners to scale up climate financing and called for scientific and evidence-based, investment-led, and transformative solutions to the climate crisis. Reaffirming the Philippines' commitment to ASEAN goals, President Marcos said inclusive development and investment in people are at the core of the country's national strategies. The chief executive also welcomed ASEAN's consensus to avoid retaliatory economic measures and lauded Malaysia's leadership in the ongoing dialogue to preserve regional trade stability. Manila will host the regional meet next year. Let us listen to the full speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. during the event.
The Honorable Datu Seri Anwar bin Ibrahim, and allow me on behalf of all of us to take this opportunity to thank you for your gracious hospitality and kindness as this year's chair. Your Majesty, Excellencies, at the outset, the Philippines conveys its deep appreciation to Malaysia for its chairship and for advancing the theme of inclusivity and sustainability. This theme aptly reflects not only the aspirations of our region, but the shared responsibilities that we must embrace in today's evolving global landscape. In an era marked by sometimes dizzying transformation, we are reminded that while progress can uplift nations, there is also a risk of leaving segments of our society behind. Inclusivity, therefore, must not be treated as an ideal that is achieved by development. It is the foundation upon which sustainable and resilient growth is built. In the Philippines, our national strategies help define our path towards deeper stability and security. Yet, these objectives can only be realized by working together with our partners as we collectively navigate a constantly shifting global architecture. Sustainable growth requires that we invest in our people. Each of us must contribute to win the future that we envision for our community. Inclusive development is equitable, empowering, and transformative. Accordingly, we build resilient communities equipped to face climate change, health crises, and economic disruptions. We implement welfare programs to ensure that dignity and opportunity are not lost even in times of crisis. In line with the ASEAN Community Vision 2045 and its pillars, The Philippines will continue to work so that ASEAN should be secure, peaceful, and stable, governed by the rule of law, prosperous and innovative, emerging as a resilient, innovative, dynamic, and people-centered community. With over 30 million young people in the Philippines, we regard the youth as the heart of societal transformation, the key driver of ASEAN's future, and the incoming leaders of good governance, innovation, and creativity. As the engines of the region's economic dynamism, ASEAN workers, professionals, and service providers must be equipped with the skills, protections, and opportunities that they need to thrive. But as we chart our path forward, let us also acknowledge the growing complexity of challenges that we face. In this increasingly interconnected world, we find ourselves and our gains at risk when our current stability is challenged. Geopolitical tensions, unexpected trade barriers, and the unprecedented impact of climate change have the potential to disrupt our communities, supply chains, and remove our hard-earned progress. Yet, by working together, strengthening our institutions, and building the resilience and capacities of our people, we can better navigate this increasingly uncertain future and turn challenges into opportunities for shared growth and stability. We underscore the urgent need to accelerate the adoption of a legally binding code of conduct in the South China Sea. This to safeguard maritime rights, promote stability, and prevent miscalculations at sea. We commend Malaysia's leadership in convening the special ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting and welcome the consensus to avoid retaliatory measures. This measured and unified approach upholds ASEAN's commitment to dialogue, diplomacy, and a rules-based multilateral trading system. Effective responses to transnational crime requires robust cooperation, timely intelligence sharing, and strengthened law enforcement. The Philippines reaffirms its commitment to the full implementation of the ASEAN Declaration to prevent and combat trafficking in persons caused by the abuse of technology. Climate change, as well, is now the most defining and cross-cutting challenge of our time. As one of the most climate-vulnerable regions globally, nearly half of the entire ASEAN population faces significant climate-related risks. As the host of the board of the Fund for Responding to Loss and Damage, the Philippines will continue to advocate for scientific and evidence-based, investment-led, and transformative solutions to the climate crisis. In this regard, we urge ASEAN's partners to scale up predictable and accessible and adequate climate finance to enable ASEAN to realize its climate ambitions and safeguard the future of our communities. We also call for deeper regional cooperation to address these emerging and transboundary challenges. My dear colleagues, in 2017, as ASEAN Chair, the Philippines undertook to partner for change and to engage the world. Since then, ASEAN has welcomed one additional full dialogue partner, 4 sectoral dialogue partners, 5 developmental partners, and 20 countries which have acceded to the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia. This reflects ASEAN's growing voice, not only in our immediate region, but in the world. ASEAN has always been an outward-looking community, guided and anchored by a common set of values, our love for peace and concern for the welfare of our peoples. Let me thus urge all member states to remember that to meaningfully engage our partners, we must advance these values and interests, sensitive, of course, to our external partners' respective strengths and challenges. Let us therefore continue engaging our partners not merely to expand networks, but to uphold and project the values that define ASEAN: peace, inclusivity, and shared progress. As we support Malaysia's ASEAN chairship in 2025, we stand ready to build on our shared achievements and sustain momentum until 2026. Maraming salamat po. Thank you all.
You just heard the speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. during his intervention at the 46th ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday urged the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, to strengthen digital literacy and resilience among the region's youth as a proactive measure against online scams and other emerging cyber threats. President Marcos emphasized the youth's critical role in building a people-centered community during the ASEAN Leaders Interface with ASEAN Youth held as part of the 46th ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. During the dialogue between ASEAN leaders and youth representatives, the President said, "The world is rapidly changing, driven by technology and other advancements in the digital frontier." The Chief Executive said, "A darker side accompanies opportunities, and in the technological space, there are online scams, cyberbullying, misinformation, disinformation, and the potential for abuse and misuse of artificial intelligence, or AI." President Marcos also encouraged the youth to take an active role in collective efforts to address and mitigate the impacts of climate change, emphasizing their vital contribution to building a more sustainable and resilient future. The Philippines continues to support youth-led initiatives on climate change, while the President noted the success of the ASEAN Youth Climate Action and Disaster Resilience Conference held in Manila on May 1st and the 2nd.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines and Vietnam are in negotiations to further elevate their strategic partnership into a comprehensive strategic partnership. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. held a bilateral meeting with Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh on the sidelines of the ongoing ASEAN Summit in Malaysia on Monday. The Vietnamese Prime Minister acknowledged the remarkable progress in bilateral relations since President Marcos's state visit to Vietnam in January of 2024. President Marcos also extended his condolences to the Vietnamese leader on the passing of former Vietnamese President Tran Duc Luong on May 20. The two leaders recognized the expanding economic and trade cooperation between the Philippines and Vietnam. They also strengthened collaboration in agriculture and food security and enhanced people-to-people exchanges in education, tourism, and cultural engagement. The Philippines and Vietnam are commemorating the 10th anniversary of their strategic partnership, marking a decade of strengthened cooperation and enduring friendship between the two nations.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and Lao Prime Minister Sonicsay Sifandone on Monday reaffirmed their commitment to further advancing bilateral relations. This year, the Philippines and Laos marked the 70th year of diplomatic relations. President Marcos met with Prime Minister Sifandone on the sidelines of the 46th Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN Summit at the Kuala Lumpur Convention Center in Malaysia. Both leaders expressed their shared intention to deepen cooperation across key areas of mutual interest. The two leaders highlighted key areas of bilateral cooperation, including defense, trade, investment, and education, reaffirming their shared commitment to deepening collaboration across these strategic sectors. President Marcos acknowledged the great potential for increased trade between the Philippines and Laos, citing the latter's rapid economic growth as a promising avenue for expanded economic engagement. Trade between the Philippines and Laos has seen notable growth, rising to approximately $13.72 million in 2024 from around $7 million in 2019, reflecting the strengthening of economic ties between the two nations. Looking ahead, both sides identified additional areas for enhanced cooperation, including agriculture, skills development, tourism, and emerging fields such as artificial intelligence or AI and digital technology. Prime Minister Sifandone acknowledged the contributions of the more than 2,000-strong Filipino community in Laos to education, research, and architecture. He thanked the Philippine government for providing language training and scholarships for its ministries. The Laotian leader noted Filipino investments in the clean energy sector and invited more Filipino investments in his country's priority areas, including advanced technology, research, clean agriculture, the agro-processing industry, tourism, education, health services, and infrastructure. Prime Minister Sifandone, expressing keen interest in further deepening bilateral relations, extended an invitation to President Marcos for an official visit to Laos.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine House Speaker Ferdinand Martin Romualdez called on Southeast Asian lawmakers to defend the rules-based international order, empower citizens, and lead the transformation of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, through bold and visionary legislation. Speaking at the 14th ASEAN Leaders Interface with representatives of the ASEAN Inter-Parliamentary Assembly, or AIPA, at the Kuala Lumpur Convention Center in Malaysia, Romualdez emphasized the critical role of legislative institutions in securing peace, prosperity, and regional sovereignty. Romualdez stressed that regional peace and prosperity hinge on the steadfast observance of international law, especially amid growing global polarization and external threats to maritime integrity. The House Speaker said that under the decisive leadership of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., the Philippines is forging a bagong Pilipinas, or New Philippines, anchored on unity, innovation, and inclusivity, a national agenda that aligns closely with ASEAN's own goals. He reaffirmed the Philippine Congress's full commitment to championing regional priorities through laws that strengthen food security, renewable energy, digital infrastructure, cyber defense, and green, inclusive growth. Romualdez urged ASEAN lawmakers to embrace their role not only as policymakers but also as bridge builders across cultures and generations. The meeting marked a milestone in ASEAN AIPA cooperation as the Philippines prepares to assume the AIPA presidency in 2026. This coincides with the 50th anniversary of the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, a symbolic moment for deepening legislative collaboration across Southeast Asia.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla on Monday said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. already has his choice for the next chief of the Philippine National Police, or PNP. In a press briefing at Camp Caringal, Quezon City, Remulla said to just wait for the president's announcement. Remulla said incumbent PNP Chief General Romel Marbil's successor is expected to be announced in the next 2 weeks. President Marcos earlier extended Marbil's term by 4 months from his mandatory retirement on February 7th to help ensure stability during the 2025 midterm elections. The 56-year-old Marbil was appointed PNP chief on April 1st, 2024. Last week, Malacañang said President Marcos is in the process of selecting the next PNP chief. Among those being considered for the post are PNP Deputy Chief of Administration, Lieutenant General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr., PNP Chief Directorial Staff, Lieutenant General Edgar Allan Okubo, National Capital Region Police Office Director Brigadier General Anthony Aberin, and Criminal Investigation and Detection Group Director Major General Nicolas Torre III.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, for our foreign exchange rates, according to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, as of Monday, May 23rd, the United States dollar stands at 55 pesos and 49 centavos, the Japanese yen at 39 centavos, Singaporean dollar at 43 pesos and 18 centavos, South Korean won at 4 centavos, and a Chinese yuan is at 7 pesos and 73 centavos. In other foreign currencies, the Hong Kong dollar is at 7 pesos and 9 centavos. The British pound is at 75 pesos and 8 centavos. 1 euro is equivalent to 63 pesos and 8 centavos. 40 pesos and 43 centavos for the Canadian dollar, while the Saudi Arabian rial has a value of 14 pesos and 80 centavos.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radio Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.